The first drop that creates the ripple effect you desire has nothing to do with your partner, your kids, or even your parents, but it is the most crucial superpower that you need to break free from stable misery in any relationship. You see, the reason you're stuck in stable misery isn't because you've done something wrong or that you or your partner or your child are broken. It's because you and your family have not been present or aware of the tiny habits that slowly formed in your home to get you where you are. To say that differently, you didn't start stuck. Right? You and your child didn't start stuck. You and your partner didn't start stuck. This was a slow simmering process that got you here, and you had to ignore some signposts to be here. The emotional signposts, the body sensation signposts that said, this doesn't feel right, or I don't like the way we're talking to each other, or I love you, but I don't like you right now, right? I'm not saying this to shame. Many of us were raised to ignore our body sensations or our emotions. If you've ever been told things like, stop crying before I give you something to cry about, or nothing's wrong with you, or it's just a scratch, shake it off, or eat something, I'm sure you'll feel better. Statements such as these teach children that the signals or signs they're receiving from their emotions and their body are wrong. And this creates a ton of confusion. They think, mom and dad are telling me I'm fine, but my body's telling me I'm not fine. I'm so confused. And because kids can't shut down their caregivers, they shut down the signals and the signs they're receiving from their body and their emotion to lessen that confusion. And instead of flipping that switch back on later in life, we just learn to live without these emotional and sensation signals. Now, the problem with this is that these signals are everything. We have them for a reason. Without these signals, we lack awareness around how we're feeling, what we're thinking, how we're reacting or coming across to others. And we don't tune in until someone points it out to us or we're blowing up or shutting down, right? They become really big and we're incapable of ignoring them. This is how stable misery slowly seeps into and takes over our homes. It doesn't happen in a day or in a moment, it happens over time. But when we lack awareness, we don't tune into it until it's glaring. So, in order to start the process of breaking your family free from stable misery, you must break the trance of disconnection from your body and your emotions. The first droplet you're going to explore this week will help you do that. So, the first droplet is self awareness. This droplet will help you better identify the unhelpful habits that need to be broken in your relationship with your partner or your child by first identifying what's going on within you. You see, before we can start changing any relationship, including the one with yourself, you have to get a deeper understanding of what exactly needs to change. And awareness helps with this. And because any change that you make will create ripples that impact those around you, self-awareness is your superpower. Now, for this first experiment, I'm going to invite you to monitor how you're showing up each day. This is just the first step, and I'm not inviting you to change anything yet. Okay, remember, droplets here. I just want you to notice. Now, many of you may have done this experiment with me already, and that's okay. Do it again. You can't do this too much. I created a chart called the Zones of Experience chart. See, at any given time, we're likely settled into one of three zones or somewhere in between: the red zone, the blue zone, and the purple zone. Now, all three of these zones are crucial to our day-to-day functioning and our survival, but sometimes we go to extremes of the red or the blue, and that's when some of the issues can start. So I've organized this chart in terms of how we tend to feel physically and emotionally when we're in each zone. Okay. When we're in the blue zone, we tend to have less energy, feel more powerless, hopeless. When we're in the red zone, we're super energized, but maybe to the point of anxiety or anger or fear or frustration. Now, most of us either live in the red or blue zone much of the time. Actually, we often ping pong between the two, but we don't even realize it because you've been spending so much time there for months, years, maybe even decades. To you, this ping pong likely just feels like Tuesday. Okay, it's normal. But here's the thing. It's difficult, and in some cases, depending on how deep into red or blue you are, impossible to connect with others from the extreme areas of each of these zones, the blue and the red zone, because your nervous system, when in these places, is seeking safety, not connection. Okay? Now, when you're in purple, that's the connection zone. But for many of us, especially if you're watching this or you're listening to this audio, you're not quite sure what purple even feels like anymore. Right? Forget spending extended amounts of time there. But here's the thing. Stable misery is actually one of your best friends. I know that sounds weird. I know. Let me explain. Stable misery is where your nervous system or the overwhelmed parts of you take you when you spend too much time in your red or blue zones. Why? Because stable misery is actually a protective state. The unhelpful habits that keep our relationships stuck in stable misery, the yelling, the shaming, the shutting down, the sarcasm, yeah, I'm looking at you, they have a purpose. And that purpose is to help us keep what we can, well, stable and safe and predictable when other things in our life become chaotic, even if that stability costs us our sense of joy and leaves us feeling miserable. Think about it this way. You have inner parts within you that I like to call the stable misery maintenance crew, and they have a very clear purpose. So you'll say, but we're disconnected from our partner. And the crew says, at least we're safe. You say, but we're having the same fight with our kids every morning. The crew says, at least things are familiar. We know what to expect. You say, but we're using hurtful, self-shaming tactics every day to force ourselves to get it together. The crew says, hey, those tactics are keeping you safe from the hungry lions of failure and the wolves of regret. You're welcome. Their intentions are good, just misguided, right? So the longer you live in red or blue, the more likely you'll stay stuck in stable misery, because stable misery is a safe place. It's a safe zone when you're in red or blue. So here's your experiment for the week. I want you to track your zones. Pick 1 to 3 times a day where you ask yourself, what zone am I in? And then post this chart somewhere to help you remember if you need it. Maybe even set alarms on your phone to remind yourself to check in. Okay? All we're doing is noticing. Now, family invitation. If you'd like to invite your family into this, but remember, not required. Okay? But if you'd like to invite your family into this, here's how. Show them the chart and agree with each other to check in at least once a day with questions like, where are you now? Or where have you spent most of the day today? Or what zone are you in? Red, purple, or blue? If you have kids that are really young, be patient. The colors, they really do help, but you may need to help them recall what each state feels like for them. Maybe asking things like, remember when your little brother took your toy? What color were you then? Okay. This is such a helpful experience. Please don't skip this droplet. My clients and members in my Trigger to Transform parent coaching program tell me that this chart gives everyone in the house a common language and a way to communicate what they are feeling fast and easy. But again, as I said in the last audio, if your family isn't interested, don't force it. You stick with it. Even allow them to see you and hear you using the language. Model the change you want to see. Your use of the self-awareness droplet will create ripples. All right. So change what you can, and you and the rest will follow as it's meant to. Just trust that. Okay, so hit reply on this email or comment below, depending on where you are listening to this, and let me know, what zone do you tend to default to? I will say this, my clients and my community members, they often surprise themselves because they think they live in one zone, but after a week of tracking, they realize it's something else. So let me know what you notice, and I'll see you next time.